Welcome to South Florida Saltwater Fishing. I'm Heath and it's Tips and Tricks Thursday. You ever wanted to go out and do some deep dropping for giant snowy grouper? Maybe even those big black grouper, possibly even warsaw grouper, but you just didn't know how to make the rig for it? Well, in this episode, I'm going to go over step by step how you can make your own DIY deep drop rig for grouper. Before we get into this though, if you want to learn more about fishing, grow as an angler, or just see some great and exciting offshore fishing adventures, you can start by hitting the subscribe button. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell so that you won't miss a thing. Alright folks, so like I said, a deep drop rig for grouper. No more going to the bait store and paying $20 for this setup. It's very simple. You can do it on your own. You're gonna have to buy some gear, but the gear is gonna make you several setups, not just one. So what this setup is it's essentially almost like a high-low rig. At the bottom of it, you've got a loop which makes a girth hitch around your selected size weight. Then you've got your bottom hook, which will be lower to the seabed, and then you've got another hook about 12 to 16 inches above it, which will be up more in the water column. Not many hooks. You don't need 5 hooks on this rig. You're not going down trying to catch 5 rosefish at one time. We're looking for grouper. All right, folks, so we're not going to waste any more time. We're going to get into the rigging right now. Okay, to do this properly, you're going to need a few things. You're going to need a crimp tool, 2 8/0 hooks. These are Demon Perfect circle hooks from the company Mustad. They're the thick wire hooks. You're going for bigger fish and you don't want your hooks to straighten out when you get hooked. 2 sleeve swivels rated for a 150-pound test or the same diameter that your line is. 6 double barrel crimps. Again, your crimps have to be rated for the same diameter as your line. My line is 1.3 millimeters, 150-pound test, and these crimps are rated for 1.3 millimeters. You're also going to need about 4 to 5 feet of a 150-pound test leader line. This long piece is going to be what creates the trunk of your rig. And 2 pieces about 8 to 10 inches each of the same 150-pound test leader line. The first thing we're going to do is we are going to create our trunk line. So what we're going to do at the bottom of our rig, we are going to make a big loop which will basically act as a girth hitch to loop around our sinker that is going to go at the bottom. So we're going to feed on 1 crimp and we'll feed the second line through it, and you want to make sure that you've got enough of a big loop down there to get around a good sized sinker. We're going to take our crimp tool. We are going to find the setting that will work best with our crimps. These crimps are 1.3, so we have to go with the setting that is 1.0 to 2.0. You will put that right in there. Make sure you don't crimp your line. You want your crimp to be right in the middle. And we will take it and we will crimp it shut. And that's it. When you do a crimp, you want to make sure that you got a little bit of flare on the top and the bottom side of it. That way it's not pinching your line and it won't create what's called a crotch break. Now we've got our loop at the bottom. The next thing we are going to do is we are going to feed on one of the sleeve swivels. It's simple. You just basically feed your line straight through it and you slide it down. Now, we want our first sleeve swivel, which is going to attach to our hook. We're going to want it about 10 to 12 inches from the bottom. So here's the bottom. We'll put it about 10 to 12 inches up. Now on a sleeve swivel, you got to crimp on the bottom and on the top. You don't want to do just one crimp on it. So we will take that and we'll give it a little squeeze, lock it in place, and then we'll do one on the top. And that sleeve swivel is done. We're going to put another sleeve swivel on. And we're going to leave about 12 to 16 inches in between our 2 hooks. You don't want them so close together that your rig is being ineffective. This will be our ground bait and this will be our high bait. So basically almost like a high-low rig, but not really. So we got that sleeve in place. We'll take it, crimp it tight so it doesn't go nowhere. Crimp the top side of it. And that's it. Now your sleeve soles are on. All right, now the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna make our branch lines, which will hold our hooks. All right, so to make the branch lines, you put a crimp on it, you put a hook on, and you loop around your line, and you feed it through the second side of the crimp, and then you're gonna pull it down. Almost tight, almost all the way. You don't want it too tight. You want there to be a little bit of stretch. That way you don't get a crotch break. Then you can crimp it down. We're good to go. That's one hook attached. Now we will do the other one. Put one side of your crimp through. Feed your hook on. Feed the other side through the second side of the crimp and tighten it down. And again, not all the way down. You want a little bit of breathing room, a little bit of stretch. That way you don't get a crotch break. And you just give it a squeeze. And now both of our hooks are on the line. All right, so now we've got our hooks fastened to our branch lines. Now what we're gonna do is we are going to fasten them to the sleeve swivels. What you'll do is you'll follow the same process. You'll feed your branch line through a crimp, feed it through the eye of your sleeve swivel, loop it around, put it back in the second barrel of your crimp, and tighten your crimp down. Again, giving it a little bit of breathing room so that we can have some stretch. Going ahead and put it in your crimp tool, and you can crimp it down. And there you have it. Your first branch line is attached. Now we're going to do the same process to the second branch line. Feed on crimp, feed it through, pull it back out. There we go. Squeeze it closed. That's it, you're good to go. Now we have both of our hooks attached to what is called the trunk line. Now what we'll do is we're gonna make a little loop up at the top so that we can hook it to a swivel that will be on the main line of our fishing reel. Very simple. Just use another crimp, feed it through, and you don't need a very large loop. Something like that'll do you, maybe a 1-inch loop. And again, put it in your crimp tool. Give it a good squeeze, and your rig is complete. All right, so the next process to be is to select a weight. Let's say I'm going down to around 500 or 600 feet for snowy grouper. I'm gonna use a 24-ounce bell weight. What I'll do is I'll take the loop that I made at the bottom. We're gonna feed it through the eye of the bell sinker, and we will simply loop it around the bottom and pull it back up. This is called a girth hitch. And now the next thing to do is we will take our swivel, which is a 300-pound ball bearing swivel that is attached to our main line. Now we have the choice right here to use a strobe light. These are really cool. They're water activated. Once water hits them, they start strobing. This is what it looks like when they're in the dark and they're strobing. Down there 600 feet below the water's surface where there is no light, this attracts fish. So if you want to use this, you just simply feed it on to your swivel. Then you take your loop that was at the top of your rig, you rig it on, and you close your swivel. This type of swivel is a coast lock. They do not pop out when they're put under great pressure. And you're all rigged up, ready to go. You get your bait on, you drop down to the bottom, you wait for the bite. All right, folks, and it is that simple. That is how you make a deep drop rig for grouper. I want to stress something. You don't have to use this particular weight. I mentioned if you're going to 500 or 600 feet, you'll want to use about 24 ounces to 2 pounds. If you want to go deeper, let's say to 800 feet or 1,000 feet, you're going to want to up that sinker. Now, they don't make bell sinkers that are big like that. At that point, if you want to go that deep, you're going to have to use something like a 5-pound sash weight. And it'll hook on the exact same way. You just slip your loop through the eye of the weight, wrap it around the bottom. This is why you need a big loop at the bottom so that you can pull it there. And then you hook it on and you're good to go. So you've got your deep drop rig and you're going after grouper. You're going to use baits like squids. I tend to use the larger whole-size squids, or you can use small slabs of bonita, which also work great. You can also use sardines, ballyhoo. Any natural bait that you find that gets you into that bite is what you should definitely stick with. Personally, me, when I drop down, I always stick with either squid, and more often than not, I'm going with small bonita slabs. Now, I know this rig is made to target grouper, but also be aware you're going to end up with bycatch, such as vermilion snapper, blue line tilefish. You may end up with black belly rosefish if you go out deeper to that 800-foot zone. And you know, if you get really lucky, you might end up with a golden tilefish on one of these. So just bear that in mind about the other species that you may get into the bite with as you head out. Definitely would not be disappointing to get any of those. However, if you end up with your targeted species, it's just a bonus when you head offshore. Alright folks, that about does it for this episode. Hope you had fun, hope you enjoyed, and I hope you learned how to make your own deep drop rig for grouper. Till next time, South Florida saltwater fishing, going wherever the cool wind takes us.